Hello, everyone, and welcome to the RealClearPolitics Takeaway for Thursday, April 21st. I'm Tom Bevan, co-founder and president of RCP.
And I'm Carl Cannon, Washington Bureau Chief. Tom, astute followers of this podcast will notice that I have my glasses on this morning. I usually take them off out of sheer vanity. But I'm keeping it on today because I want to ask you about some polls. We have the most recent polls. Everybody knows RealClearPolitics averages polls. Our RealClearPolitics polling average is the gold standard, in my view. But there's four polls out. President Biden's approval rating seems to be ticking up, Tom. The Economist YouGov poll, 43% approved, 51% disapproved. Now still underwater. Exact same numbers in a Reuters Ipsos poll. Rasmussen reports approved 43, disapproved 56. The disapproval number there is higher. But the Morning Consult political poll, President Biden's approval rating 45%, disapproved 52. Now he's still underwater there, but are his approval ratings going up, and are there implications there about the midterms?
Well, I mean, certainly if his approval rating does go up, it has an absolute impact on the midterms. I mean, it's the single biggest factor that correlates to outcomes. I mean, if the president's job approval rating gets, around 50%, and Sean Trendy's detailed this, repeatedly for us over the years. So president in the low 40s, where he is, our RealClearPolitics average is bad sign for Democrats. They will almost certainly lose the House and probably the Senate as well, and possibly by big margins. So it's a good sign for Democrats. I would also note that in those same polls, the generic congressional ballot has ticked in favor of the Democrats as well, and so that's a good sign for them. We'll see if it is a long-term trend or merely just sort of a statistical blip on the radar. Certainly, to the extent that inflation comes down or they get some good news, economic news. But, the administration, Jen Psaki said yesterday, Carl, that, there's going to be no delay in this the lifting of Title 42, which is May 23rd. That's going to happen. And that's an issue that, again, immigration is his approval rating on immigration is a good 7 to 10 points lower than his overall job approval rating. It's not a good issue for Democrats, and it's going to be back in the news.
Well, and moderate Democrats are saying that, we need to pay attention to what the majority of American people want, not just our progressive base. And this is one of the issues they point to. But in view of what you were saying about the midterms, Professor Joseph Campbell at American University, who is a great empiricist, he writes about, we have conceptions about what happened in history, and he writes about what really happened. Did LBJ really say, we've lost Walter Cronkite, we've lost the people on Vietnam War? No. And he debunks myths, and he's a very sober commentator and observer of the political scene. And he wrote yesterday in the Hill newspaper, Tom, he said, expectations about national elections confidently asserted months in advance are prone to error. Historical reality that tends to be overlooked as a dominant narrative takes hold about an unfolding national campaign. Now, the dominant narrative is that, the Democrats are reeling on all of these issues, that Joe Biden is a weak leader, that other Democrats don't want to follow him, that the economy and all the basics, the fundamentals, what political scientists and political hacks call the fundamentals, are working in the Republicans' favor. But Joe Campbell warns us, take a deep breath here. We're months away.
Well,
and Biden's approval and Biden's rise in approval rating is sort of with that trend. That's what I'm trying to urge is caution.
Well, and I've said repeatedly over the course of the last week or two, I mean, the only silver lining in these numbers is that for the Democrats is that the election's still 6 months away, and that is a lifetime in politics. And things certainly can change and probably will change between now and the election. I mean, we only have the data that we have for right now. If the election were held today, obviously Democrats would get destroyed. But the election isn't being held today. And so I think for that reason, anybody who tries to suggest that they know what the future is going to look like, you should ignore, because nobody knows that. So, all right, Carl, my question for you this morning is a story out of Florida. The Republican-led Senate repealed Disney's special tax status. This has been an ongoing fight, obviously, between the governor, led by the governor, Ron DeSantis, who is a potential 2024 front runner, especially if Donald Trump does not run, But he has been involved in a brutal back and forth battle with Disney over allegations of, the grooming and the "Don't Say Gay" law, as Disney and other progressives have called it. It is most certainly, the supporters of that law would say it is most certainly not that. It is a parental rights education bill that prevents people from talking about gender and the like from kindergarten to third grade. But this is a sort of escalation in the battle here, Carl, with the Senate stripping Disney's special tax status that they've enjoyed for decades in the state of Florida. What do you make of this? You were just down at Disney very recently with your granddaughters. Is it still the most magical place on earth, Carl?
It's pretty magical when you have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old in tow, or you're in their tow, really. but Tom, I was there, and if you read Twitter or you watch cable news, you'd think, oh, we're not going to get on any rides. There'll be a huge walkout. The employees are all up in arms about it. And here's the interesting thing: we stayed in the park. We never heard of this from any employee or any patron. We didn't hear anybody talk about politics the whole time we were there, which was kind of refreshing. But
That's why you go there
wouldn't
in
have
the
known
first
it was
place, right?
there. They switched though. There was this subtle thing when we were there, and I noticed it. I didn't know what to think of it. I thought it was a tick by a couple of park employees. They started calling people friends, and this was the term of art agreed upon, not ladies and gentlemen, not boys and girls, friends. And I noticed it, but I didn't think about it in political terms, and it seemed perfectly appropriate. But the other thing I'll say, Tom, is I'm a native Californian, and in some ways, this seems like a battle between, um, you know, Florida and California, between Disneyland and Disney World, which is much bigger. When Walt Disney bought that land in Central Florida, there was nothing there, and people said, "Oh, nobody will even go. It's too humid." I mean, it's just, and it completely transformed the whole state. That part of the state. Um, but Ron DeSantis has said, I'm not going to let a California corporation, dictate to us. And what happened was Disney employees, I assume a minority, were urged by if they're LGBT people or friends, and urged, hey, speak out against this bill, and why isn't our company doing more? And then the company did speak out against the bill. As you point out, the bill's popular with voters. My guess would be, now speaking for Disney World, where I've been more recently, probably most of the people who work at Disney would, overwhelming majority would be comfortable with it. You can't talk about gender issues till third grade. This seems like a pretty mild thing, but it's, we keep going back on this, Tom. You mentioned inflation and Joe Biden, but and obviously the economy is not where the White House wants to be, although employment's very low. But if James Carville was running a campaign today, I've said this before, the sign on the wall of the campaign headquarters wouldn't be "It's the economy, stupid." It would be "It's the culture, stupid," because this is a cultural battle, and to most Americans, it seems kind of stupid.
Well, certainly that's going to be an inescapable part of the political landscape heading for the election, especially given what happened in Virginia last year. So, all right, we will leave it there. I'm Tom Bevan, co-founder president of Real Clear Politics.
And I'm Carl Cannon, Washington Bureau Chief, and this has been the RCP Takeaway for Thursday, April 21st, 2022.